Hi, welcome back. Today I want to chat about taking those first steps to changing your eating habits for good. I don't know about you, but breaking free from that cycle of rigid and unsuccessful diet plans and learning to listen to our bodies and trust ourselves around food can be one of the hardest things when starting out eating differently. So I hope some of the tips that help me will be useful to you. So, firstly, as a reminder, the way in which I managed to lose weight and make changes to how I eat was by essentially cutting out foods with ultra processed additives, so all ultra processed foods pretty much, and eating in a much cleaner, healthier way. And the layman's term, as I understand it, to identify what we mean by ultra processed is if you take a look at the food labels and any of the ingredients in that food contain something that you wouldn't find in your home kitchen, it's probably an ultra processed food, a product that's been mass produced in order to make it more palatable, more desirable, more addictive, etc., and to make you eat more of it. So when we see things like emulsifiers, lesser soy lecithin, guar gum, E-numbers, all of these things that you think, well, I don't even know what that is, and I certainly wouldn't use it if I was making a recipe at home, are things to look out for. So the first thing I'd say is just go into your food cupboard or your fridge and start by having a look at the food labels and get to know what's in the foods that you eat a lot and that you find are problematic. You can't stop eating them, you crave them. And I'm pretty sure that most of those things that are an issue will have some of these properties of ultra processed foods. Some of the most consumed ultra processed foods in this country are things like breakfast cereals, sliced bread products that you find in the supermarket in packets, processed meals, ready meals, processed meats and vegan alternatives, packaged snack products, crisps, popcorns, things like that. And even down to things that you think, oh, that's a really healthy thing, like a yogurt or a jar of pasta sauce. You know, it can go across all food types, whether they appear to be healthy or not. And the supermarket can be an absolute minefield, I find. One of my first tips would be go with a shopping list. And I know people always say that. I mean, if only because it will probably save you money. But it's so easy to get pulled in because all these exciting new products, they look interesting, they look delicious because that's their purpose. And you can get pulled in so easily. And I even can get this with so-called healthy products, going even to a health food store and I see all these things that I think, oh, that looks nice, I fancy trying that. And then you have to stop yourself and think, well, really, do I want it? I don't know. Anyway, just taking that pause can help. So some of the first things that I removed from my daily eating would be sliced bread, because as I think I said in my previous video, I ate a lot of it. It was certainly a food that I could binge eat, I could rely upon. I would replace meals by eating bread. I would snack on bread. And I think it's important to remind ourselves that we're not demonizing any food. We're not demonizing bread in and of itself. But the type of bread I was eating was mass produced, filled with additives, ultra processed additives, and addictive. The sort of thing that you could squidge up into your mouth and almost not notice you'd eaten it. And it was gone in a second. So bread was a big one for me. Also, margarine, vegan margarine is what I used to have, of course. I'd always known margarine isn't particularly good for you, but it was full of additives. And by removing bread, I of course didn't really need the margarine, because now when I have bread, I have sourdough bread, and I enjoy that with peanut butter. But yes, I didn't find that I needed to continue with the margarine anyway. Anyway, that's by the by. I wasn't eating a lot of the foods that do come up in the problematic list, obviously not processed meats. I didn't particularly eat breakfast cereals anymore because I found, again, I was relying upon having bread. Something, again, though, that I did end up removing a lot of were vegan meat alternatives. Products that came in jars and pots, vegan yogurts, jars of maybe it's sauces and things like that. But the first ones that I mainly focused on was the bread, the vegan cheese, the vegan margarine, and meat alternative products, because they would have been the biggest component day in, day out of things that would have caused me an issue. So what did I replace these with? Well, as far as the bread was concerned, I have always loved sourdough bread, but now I only choose that, like a really high quality, nicely made sourdough bread. And I know it's expensive and I do eat less of it, partly because I don't crave as much of it. It's much more satisfying and filling. So the fact that it's more expensive, I can make that trade-off in my experience. What I have on that is, healthier toppings, like I swapped peanut butter that maybe had extra oils added, etc., and now just buy the peanut butter that only has peanuts, 100% peanuts in it. When I was just getting started, I also managed to find some things like some crackers that were just very basic, flour, yeast, water, salt, whatever's in them, and could lean on those as alternatives as well. I also make things like very basic, and I still do this, very simple chickpea flour or buckwheat flour pancakes. I mean, they're as easy as anything, and I can always go in some recipes at some point. Then as far as the vegan cheese, well, I just cut it out because there isn't really very much in vegan cheese that you'd necessarily want to eat if you were to break it down to its component parts. And I wasn't my favourite thing in the world anyway, and I find that I can make a very delicious alternative myself just with cashews, and I use nutritional yeast a lot. Of course, it should be said, if you're not on a vegan plant-based diet, you've probably got more options open to you because, dairy, meat and fish products can be very pure, no additives, etc. So by all means, if that's what you choose to eat, go ahead. I'm just going through what I had to replace, and if you're eating those vegan alternatives, they are sadly very processed. So I've always eaten tofu and tempeh and beans and pulses, but what I did was I made them the entirety of my protein element, if you like, of my diet, rather than having things like vegan mince or plant-based bacon or plant-based chicken type products, which were of course more processed. And then the other initial big replacement would have been the things I snacked on. So aside from bread, it would have been flapjacks, snack bars, the odd biscuit, those things that you pick up and you think, well, that's not too bad, it's not that many calories necessarily. And what I replaced that with was eating some of the stuff that was actually a component of that bar. So I like nuts and seeds. So often I would have just the nuts and the seeds and maybe a couple of dates or some fruit. But I did go on to find that as I became more nourished and eating better, that actually my need to snack massively reduced, to the point that now I really only have a small snack in the afternoon if I need it, and that will be a few nuts and a few grapes or some peanut butter with grapes or something like that, something quite easy and basic and simple. I think that's the key. Something simple, something that when you pick it up, you can see what it is. It's not been split into its component parts, reprocessed and packaged and designed for you to eat as much of it as you can, as quickly as you can. And whilst some of the changes I made cost money, I'm not going to deny that nuts and seeds and things and sourdough bread there can be quite costly. Overall, by not going out and buying, these multi-packs of flapjack bars or endless loaves of bread or endless bags of different funky flavoured crisps, actually it balances out. And I do think overall I spend a lot less on meals now because I am eating, instead of very expensive plant-based mince or bacon, for example, I'll cook something with lentils or chickpeas or other pulses, or with just blocks of tofu. So it swings and roundabouts. I find it's balanced out. In terms of any specific foods that were triggers for me that I actually made a conscious decision to cut, the only one really was pasta. Now, I used to eat gluten-free pasta because I do have I have IBS, and I do have a bit of an issue sometimes with wheat, not massively, but I used to eat gluten-free pasta, and that in fact counted, I discovered, as an ultra-processed food. I can't even remember what it had, but it had something in it. So that made it a simple decision for me to cut out, and I did actively cut out that because it was the one thing I felt could, in the initial stages, interfere with my level of control. So that went, and actually now I tend to eat lentil pasta, which I enjoy, and I'm in a different place now. I don't feel that need to binge on it. So what I did at this beginning was I didn't log anything. All I did was I made a note of any ultra-processed foods that I did consume, just so that I could see where they were creeping in and how many I had. Most of them ended up being when I was out of the house, which I discounted. You have to give yourself some slack. But otherwise I didn't log anything because I just thought I need to focus on what I'm eating and doing and not making another list. And gradually my taste buds changed, my cravings changed to the point where, and this is only my personal experience, but I just didn't want to eat the things I used to eat. I mean, for quite a time, I would still treat myself to crisps when I felt like I needed something different like that. But I would only buy the crisps that were just ready salted, which were my favourite anyway, to be honest, but not the ones with loads of extra stuff in. But even I found I went off them, and I mean, good Lord, I was a crisp fanatic. But essentially, I was amazed at the changes that happened by making these swaps. And another thing I just had to remind myself of, and still probably will never leave me, is that food is not entertainment. And what I mean by that is food can be a great way of sharing time with friends and family. It can be enjoyable, it can be fun, it's delicious. I love to cook personally. But it's not entertainment. And for me, it had become a way of, it would be almost what I would look forward to. Oh, when's the next meal coming? So to remind myself that food wasn't there as my entertainment helped me, just me. And maybe you've got something that would help you like that as a reminder. It's so hard to make change, especially when you're trying to break the habits of a lifetime. But we've all got the evidence that what we've always done obviously hasn't worked. So we've got nothing to lose by trying a different way. And I say this as a real control freak. It was very hard for me to let go of old patterns, but you've got to just try and push through it. So I hope this was helpful. It's difficult to make those changes and break free of that all or nothing culture and just add in those new habits every day. But every time you do something positive, you've got to pat yourself on the back. I think that diet culture can make us feel so bad about ourselves. But I really believe, we're all doing the best we can in the moment, in the place where we find ourselves right now. So, keep going, little changes at a time, and I'll be back soon to talk more about all of these things. Thanks so much for watching. I'm feeling honestly so inspired and excited by starting this channel. I've really loved talking about these topics, and for so long I haven't really had anyone in my own life that I can talk so openly with like this. So this is great and I'm loving it, and I can't wait to put some more content up. Anyway, take care and good luck with any changes you're making.